Lachy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Very good. So you are the DM for Mimicstan, which, as of recording, just launched last week. We're seeing you pop up in actual play all over the place. But just to get started, for anyone who hasn't heard of you, who hasn't heard of Mimicstan, who are you first? And then let's talk about Mimicstan next.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Lachy. As you said, I'm a DM for Mimicstan. I have been playing D&D for a hot second, and I play music on the side. I do a bunch of audio stuff, and that's just weaved its way into my nerdy isms.
Awesome. So I always like to start these conversations by finding out how it all started for you, like your origin story, basically. So take me back to the beginning. What was the day like, if you can remember? What is your first sort of foray into D&D, if you can, but tabletop games in general?
I think the day was a Monday. I used to work at a telco, and I was rolling in. I thought the group were talking about Magic the Gathering, because that's another addiction I have. So I was like, hey, you guys talking about Magic the Gathering? And they were like, no, we're talking about D&D. I was like, hey, man, can I get some of that? We went to my friend's place that evening. I rolled up a Ranger, I think, and I shot a deer, and that was my first session.
And you were hooked from that point, and that's all it took?
Yeah, that's all it took. I rolled the dice. I think it was even a critical failure. But then it was followed by like a 17 and then a nat 20. And then I was like, this is the best rush of dopamine I've ever had. So, yeah.
Well, I'll get you to tell me a little bit more about that first character soon. But to start things out, so we just teased it a little bit. You've just launched a really exciting new actual play podcast called Mimicstan. So tell us all about it.
So the first campaign that we're playing in the Mimicstan is called Tales from the Luckweaver's Tavern. The concept came about when I was playing like a cozy sort of tavern sim one day, and I was like, wouldn't it be interesting to have a party have to deal with like tavern economy, run a tavern with, while doing all the same D&D stuff and having zero skill at running a tavern. It's got some really, really cool players in it. Cloudkill Connor, a couple of other guys who are just getting fresh into TTRPGs as well. And yeah, there's some really cool story beats that I'm interested to play along with, like rival taverns, health inspectors, all that sort of stuff.
I saw you do a post as well where you're like, if you like this, you'll probably like this. And one of those things was like I think the book series Legends and Lattes, like the cozy fantasy stories. So is coziness an element of this that you're wanting to explore?
I mean, look, we do record, I guess, peer behind the veil. We do record these in advance. So we're up to episode 5 and 6. That'll be recorded very soon. And some of the upcoming ones do feed directly into that cozy experience, which, look, to be honest, nervous initially because I'm like, is this going to even be any kind of interesting story? But listening back, I was like, yeah, this does feed the cozy. It feeds those beats of like, do I have enough carrots to make, I don't know, a carrot cake, that sort of stuff.
Let's talk a little bit about sound design. So I've listened to the full first episode, loved it, was hilarious and fun and some great voice work by yourself, essentially, especially in there. But one thing that really jumped out to me was the sound design. Obviously, you're taking the sound design side of things as a key element of the show, and this is something I'm super passionate about. Why did you decide to lean into the sound design side of things?
I have a background as a musician. I studied at JMC and sort of dipped my toes into the editing audio space, working with DAWs, and I really fell in love with the concept of like arrangements, finding music that sits really, really well and sort of encapsulates, warms a scene, and just adds to it. And nothing is more like capable of evoking emotions than really well-placed words, accentuated and accented by music. So I applied that into Mimicstan because it really was my chance to get to do something that you can't do with, playing in a band on a stage or something like that.
It's so interesting as well because you sent the message over when we booked this, and I didn't have the chance to read through your thoughts until today, basically. And while I was listening to the show, I'm like, I bet Locky's in a band. This audio sounds so crisp. The mics in particular sound so good. I bet that he's in a band. And then I go and I check the message from you today, and you're like, by the way, I'm in a band. um, the band's called Empire Within. I checked out one of your music videos on YouTube. It's incredibly high production values on those types of things. So I think everyone should check that out. I'll put it in the description for the show. How does that music production background that you have, how does that impact the production of a actual play podcast?
I think so. It's interesting looking at it from like the same way I would plan, say, like writing a song or a session where I'm going to go in with the band. We have a pretty clear idea once it sort of comes together. So as the players at the table, that's the same way we would with the band. So I think I applied an element of, this is the end goal. So with the first session was like, I really want to make sure that we get those beats of the cozy, the players coming together, the opportunity to make them feel super uneasy with, some pretty creepy sounds. And that was the same way that, I would like to have this song being, heavy. I want to have elements where we're doing these massive ambient washes. And that's the same thing. If I could show you my saved like music library, there's like 400 songs in there, man. It's wild. So I sometimes go and be like, oh, this song, is going to fit this epic Vista description that comes in episode 6 or something.
And actually, this reminds me, I wanted to clarify something because you said that you'd been messing around with doors. And I know there'll be some folks in the audience who will be like, what do you mean, like doors? It was opening and closing doors? So DAW, D-A-W, stands for Digital Audio Workstation. So you're talking about apps like Audition or Pro Tools or Logic or Reaper or all these different types of things.
Correct. I use Ableton.
Wow, full-on music production. So is this your first sort of foray into the world of like content creation?
Yeah, look, for this, I'm lucky enough to have a lot of well-versed content creators who are close friends of mine who have given me tips, pointers. Cloud Connor is one of my best friends as well. And he has given me like just a wash of experience in this. So to answer the question, yeah, I'm very fresh at making content and especially in a D&D space.
So what is the biggest difference, do you think, then, when you're just sort of being a content creator versus making music?
Planning, having a calendar around what goes up when, and then just adhering to it, looking at analytics and that sort of stuff blows my mind. So if you post at this time, you'll get X amount of people, or you should. But if you post 20 minutes later, you've missed that crest of the wave, man, you're going to have a bad week. And I'm sure you get that same feeling.
Mm-hmm. And what's the biggest surprise been so far?
That it's fun, man. Like I didn't think it was going to be boring, but I didn't think I'd get as enraptured with just doing this sort of stuff. So being a part of actual plays, doing some streams. I'm on a stream campaign with Hexes and Vexes, which we play once a month. That's been cool. And that's a lot of fun. The difference between a home game and a stream game for anyone who has done it is crazy, but it's a different experience. Like, and that's a lot of fun too.
What do you think the biggest difference is, the home game to a streamed game?
Look, a home game, and I don't know how to say this because it's probably going to sound mildly taboo. People will tear you to shreds on the internet sometimes over being like, a health potion is a bonus action. You're wrong. Or like, that monster stat block doesn't have 23 as the AC. Whereas at home, you're like, no, it does because I said so.
I have a video on the Sounds Like Adventure channels at the moment talking about how to do a Marvel post-credits scene in D&D. And there are a lot of people in that who are very upset at me for suggesting that you would do anything that is not like directly player centric. Like that scene went for like a minute and a half as well in the session. Like the session went for like, 40-ish minutes type of thing. And that scene goes for a minute and a half. But apparently they're like, go write a book. Like they're so mad at me.
Dude,
like,
do you know what the worst bit is? Like, because I think I actually watched that and I was like, I love that idea, man. And I have done it. And if any of my players for Mimics Den are listening, you're not. I've recorded small little snippets that I'm going to put at like tail ends of sessions, which like from the BBEG perspective, like those Thanos things. So I can't wait to get absolutely shredded for that bit too, dude.
Love that. It does work particularly well, I find, in those spaces where your players are also consuming the show as audience members, because they get those shocks at the same time as the audience. So yeah, those are quite fun to do when your players think they know what's going to be in the content of the episode, and then it drops and they're like, what the hell was that last thing that you put in there? That's insane.
What do you mean, dude?
Don't know what you're talking about. It must have been someone else. Cool. Well, for anyone who hasn't checked the show out, where is the best place for them to go and check it out?
You can access that podcast anywhere where podcasts are available. People seem to love Spotify, but you can find all links in the link tree on Instagram.
Awesome. And links will be in the show notes and the description below for that. And throw Lachy a 5-star review if you can. We know
Please
this
do.
on podcasts. There's no other reviews are acceptable. No scores are appropriate. 5 stars are the only scores that matter. And you're doing some voice acting as well.
Yeah, man. So I've just jumped back into a bit of voice. I did it when I was in uni. I was Shaggy on an episode, like a 3-episode YouTube thing, like in 2012 or something. So it was
From
great.
Scooby Doo.
From Scooby Doo, yeah. I can.
What? This is amazing.
Yeah, like so I got to be like Scoob, like maybe we can have a sandwich for like a whole 3-4 days. So it was great. But I've just jumped back into that. I do a voice for they're another D&D group from Europe. They're called B&D Podcast. I get to play a cursed warlock by the name of Far. I don't play. I just provide my voice and talents to him. And there's a few other little things that I have got in the works that I can't talk about yet, though. So let's see if they come out by the end of the year.
So I like to finish up every chat that I do with some recurring questions that I ask everyone. So we'll jump into those now. So I teased this one a little bit before. So can you take me back to that first Ranger character that you rolled up and tell me about them? Were they a character or were they just a mechanic?
I'm trying to think of the best description of this guy because I really don't remember his name, but he was a Ranger Wood Elf, and I think that's like the most common first character everyone plays because you want to be Aragorn or you want to be Legolas. You're just that kind of nerd. He was literally me learning how to play the game. So his stats sucked. He had great dex, terrible wisdom, no con. Like, what's constitution to a Ranger, man?
How close to Legolas do you think this character was in your mind?
Look, okay, so there was the session I remember most. We had just broken into this, I think it was like a wizard's tower or something, and he had climbed this table, jumped it, managed to evade these guards, got over the door, out of arrows, pulled out 2 knives. So yeah, he was basically Legolas. All right.
Damn, sounds sick though. That's pretty cool for the first
pretty
game.
Cool, dude.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Okay, second question now. What is your most controversial tabletop games opinion?
Okay, my most controversial opinion is that Revivify, any resurrection spell just doesn't automatically work. There has to be some give and take. A lot of the rules talk about the willingness of a soul to return or the capacity for it to return. And most players will say that means the soul's able to come back. I disagree. If that character's just had, the absolute gnarliest combat session, they got absolutely rocked, frontline paladin got smashed, questions their oath, they're probably not going to want to come back. Or a cleric is greeted with their deity. Do they really want to roll back in and be like, well, I'm here, this was kind of the end goal, wasn't it? So Revivify, all that sort of stuff doesn't automatically work. That's my opinion, or a homebrew rule.
And how do you litigate that in the game then? Like, does the player character become an NPC until they are revived? And are you controlling some of that? What's happening?
So I think the best way for me to answer this is from my home game a week ago. We just had a scenario where their players went up against one of the BBEGs and 2 of them got rocked, like straight up killed. Everyone else came around and pretty quickly people were like, we don't want this person to be, done. When those sessions do occur that the players die, I usually say, look, roll me another character up between now and the actual next session, just in case either you don't want them to come back or it doesn't go well. The character's input into the resurrection is always really nice for an opportunity to RP. The relationship between 2 characters might have been, romantic, brother and sister, even just a party that's been playing together for over a year really gets attached to each other's characters most of the time. So, there might be an emotional beat where they're sobbing, trying to get them back. And I think that gives you the opportunity to then feed into the RP of your TTRPG. So it's a mechanic that I use. It pisses some people off. And yeah, there's always an opportunity for the best RP you've ever had in those sessions. And you set that up with your session zeros too. You know what I mean?
Interesting. So does that mean like the player whose character has died is like RPing that conversation essentially between these things? Like this person deciding whether or not they want to come back?
Yeah. So the scenario played out where, so we're in campaign 3 of this home game we've been playing since COVID. We've been really consistent and really lucky. So one of the previous campaigns, a character had become effectively like the ferryman of the dead. So his character has come back and been like, I'm going to hold you here in limbo until either your party can bring you back or I need to take you through to the next life. And so that character who has passed away or has died at that point is having a conversation with the ferryman. And they're going to and fro being like, maybe I do want to head on. They're being coaxed over to the other side by, visions of family, by visions of, peace, rest. They're not going to have to deal with all the BS that's just going down in the world outside of this. So that's how that plays out. And then they get echoes of this, they're at the table, they get to hear the conversation of the other characters trying to coax them back to life. So it can get pretty emotional, or it can get pretty heated if, roles aren't going well. It's like not going great. So like, it's pretty gnarly.
Wow, yeah, no, that's awesome. I personally am big on finding ways to like incorporate things that are mechanical into the story, into the narrative, the fiction of the world. Whether it's like you've taken this subclass, what does that actually look like? Like, do you meet someone who allows you to learn these new skills? And it seems like it's quite a similar approach to Revivify there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love that. I love that concept of like you said, like level 3, when your players get to a subclass. So if that, it's different for your warlocks and clerics in your 2014 edition, and 2024 is different, but let's not talk about that. But it's cool. So if that ranger is a gloomstalker now, how did that happen? If your paladin is now at a point where they're getting all these new abilities, your fighter is becoming better at fighting. Your monk is a way of the 4 elements. How are they now the avatar? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that sort of stuff.
Like, yeah, fighter becomes a battle master. Who do they meet that encourages them to be a battle master type of thing? That. Like that's, I feel like that's a big opportunity for stuff like that. And I feel like a lot of campaigns just steamroll past that stuff in the instance to just move on with the story or move on with the role play, move on with the adventure. And for me, the storytelling is in those details. When you find those details and you really, let's explode this and let's explore it in crazy minutiae here. And then final question, when you think back to your time spent around the table over the years, do you have a favorite story or a favorite memory?
This is pretty hard. Like I've got 2 really incredible memories around the table. One as a DM and one as a player. So if I can share both. There was this beat. I was playing in a campaign which was kind of a cyberpunk meets D&D, and it's not like cyberpunk. Like was it Red, which is the actual version of it? There it was D&D 5e, and I was playing a Way of the Astral Self monk. I love kung fu. I love martial arts, so I'm gonna apply that to every facet of my life. And he met his master, and it came up to this point where he was talking about, okay, we've got to go and deal with these like shattered gods sort of thing, these like mirror gods. What are we going to do? They're going to tear this city in half. It's going to be the most insane experience. I need you to tell me what to do. And it broke down that all of these hectic events that occurred in my character's backstory, he was stolen from his family. He was like beaten up with an inch of life. And his master was just like, yeah, look, I did that because I knew you were going to get to this point where you were about to take on the title of master, and it shattered me. I was like emotionally distraught. And then my DM straight up just Master Ugrade him into like the Force, like he just disappeared. And I was like, wow. You're kidding me. And that was gnarly. And then as a DM, it was in a previous campaign. We actually had Connor in that one, and his character was called Carlos. And I kind of fell in love with his character and this story. I mean, everyone in that campaign was beautiful. We had a Goliath that basically became Thor, and she was fantastic. She's referenced in the Mimic's Den as well. Her name's Zoki Stormwalker. She was there with this event anyway. But Connor's character, Carlos, had just come back to confront his father, who was just the most POS kind of dude. He just sucked. Family of sorcerers, magical blooded. Carlos wasn't, so he cut a deal with this warlock, with a patron, to become a warlock and get magic. And his father's going up into the air, about to cast like a meteor swarm to wipe them all out, and his counterspell didn't work. But his brother, his name's Gideon, he's like, I'm going to throw a counterspell. It didn't work. And I was like, shit. Sorry. I was like, if this doesn't work, man, it's not going to, you're going to get meteor swarms, you're going to wipe. And he had a moment where he's like, look, can I try and convince my other sister, who had been loyal to the father this whole time, to counterspell as well? And I was like, look, man, it's going to be the highest persuasion, but sure. Crit. So it was this Sandra's siblings, like 3-way counterspell to just stop their father. And it went off. It was emotional. Everyone teared up. Like, yeah, it was a beautiful experience, and they beat him. I get like a little worked up feeling about that. And I was like, this is pretty gnarly. So it was a beautiful moment. It was great.
That's very cool. Great. Is that the same story that Connor even shared on his episode, where he talked about everyone cried at the end?
You know what? I actually think it is.
Well, that's awesome. Now we have it from multiple perspectives. That's so cool. That's quite a story. I really love that. And I think that's an awesome note to finish the chat on today. So, Lachy, thanks for joining me. If there's anyone who's interested in finding out more, where should they go?
You can find me on all the socials at Mimic's Den, the Mimic's Den. Check us out on Spotify, wherever you consume your podcast content. I'll be there.
And don't forget those 5-star reviews.
Please, I need them.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, man.